I think castles are amazing because they have survived for hundreds of years, and it's fascinating to see they have changed and adapted and actually often end up as jails. This is a castle that played a central role in the history of Northern England, whose most visible remaining part is Clifford's Tower, but it also includes 18th century Debtors Prison, Female Prison and Courthouse. The last one is still in use. This is York Castle in the city of York. This video will provide a brief history, context and visiting tips. I aim to visit and make short videos on many castles across the country in addition to my regular ones, so please like, subscribe and click the alerts bells for future releases. Thank you for watching Eclectic Experience, change seen through images. York Castle is located here in the city of York, Yorkshire, England. On this map from Historic England, the red shaded area is the castle, which is a scheduled ancient monument and also contains 4 Grade 1 listed buildings and is surrounded by numerous other listed buildings and ancient monuments in the city. The most turbulent and horrific part of the castle's history was in its first couple of hundred years. So let's look at a timeline with monarchs to give this context. Starting with William I, William the Conqueror, who ruled following the invasion of the country in 1066. During his reign in 1068, the first castle was built and then destroyed the following year when the locals joined forces with Danish invaders in rebellion. The Normans came back and rebuilt the castle and added a second across the river. Building 2 castles so close together was very unusual and highlights the significance of the site. These were then both destroyed in a further uprising, which was then ferociously put down by King William as part of what became known as the Harrying of the North. The castles were then both rebuilt in wood, but this time extensive waterworks were added. In 1190, during the reign of King Richard I, the Lionheart of Robin Hood fame, the local Jewish population took refuge in the tower, but then committed suicide rather than end up in the hands of the mob outside. There is a memorial to them at the base of the mound today. In the 13th century, Henry III rebuilt the castle in stone. Then, during the reign of Charles I, it was repaired by the Royalists during the English Civil War in 1642. It fell in 1644 to parliamentary forces, who then took the town. The castle maintained a small garrison until in 1684 the interior of Clifford's Tower was destroyed by a blast. And that was in the reign of King Charles II. The interior was never rebuilt. In 1705 the Bailey area was redeveloped and an impressive Debtors Prison, now part of the museum, was built. This is in the reign of Queen Anne. In 1777 the courthouse was added, and then in 1780 the Female Prison, both in the reign of King George III. This is largely what we see today, as the Victorian prison was built and then in 1929 removed when the local authority took over the site. This is in the reign of King George V. So, what remains today? Of the Norman castle, mainly the mound and the keep, known as Clifford's Tower. This has recently had a platform installed, allowing access to parts of the walls not accessible before. The platform also provides great views of the city, though not so much in the snow. There is an internal room reached by a spiral staircase near the entrance. This is the chapel. The new platform itself also gives access to a very advanced old privy or toilet that used to have a water tank near the roof to flush it. This is hundreds of years before flushing toilets became commonplace. The courthouse is a Grade 1 listed building that is actually still in use, so it's not generally open to visitors. However, the old Debtors Prison and Female Prison make up a substantial part of York Castle Museum. Both are Grade 1 buildings and are accessible. The museums have recreations of street scenes from various periods, including the 1960s seen here, as well as scenes from World War I. Some cells are also available to see from when it was a prison, with interactive displays, including its most famous prisoner, Dick Turpin, who was actually hung for being a horse thief rather than a highwayman. At the rear of the building, it is possible to see some 13th century sections of the wall, which are also Grade 1 listed and part of the ancient monument, and then walk out through them to see a cornmeal, which was actually put there in the 1950s. It is actually an originally mid-19th century mill that came from Raindale, north of Pickering. If we step back and just walk round the outside of the museums, standing in the circle in the centre, it is possible to get a really good idea of the scale of the old stone castle. Visiting tips. York itself is a popular visitor attraction and can easily be accessed by road and rail. The simplest way to get round York is to walk if you're up to it, and that way you can enjoy all the amazing buildings, historic walls and sights the city has to offer whilst on the way to the castle. Clifford's Tower itself is administered by English Heritage and has an admission charge. You need to be able to walk up these steps to gain access, but if you're up to it, it is well worth it. There are no facilities in the tower itself. The York Castle Museum is administered by York Museums Trust and also has an admittance charge. This is a lot more accessible and also has toilets, a shop and a cafe. I have only briefly touched on the history of York. There is so much more. I covered just a little bit more in this video I made on how some iconic York buildings have changed since 1990. Here's the link. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Please like, click alerts for future releases and subscribe. Brought to you by Eclectic Experience. Change seen through images.